How do we feel like we have something already if we don't have it yet? If we don't know how we would feel if we were to have the thing? For example, if I wanted to be more spiritually expanded, how would I feel that way if I don't know how it would feel if I were more spiritually expanded? That's a great question. So, what it comes down to is I think we should start with the premise. The premise where you're coming from says, I have to feel as if I am spiritually expanded in order for me to manifest myself being spiritually expanded. Another way to phrase your question or phrase is, I have to feel like I have a Coca-Cola in order for me to manifest having a Coca-Cola. The word feel is very ambiguous. Correct usage of verbiage is extremely critically important when we're talking about manifesting. The reason it's so critically important is because manifesting is the solution to the phenomenon of life. And so I feel like stemming from the Bible, which is where I got most of my information from, and then from other individuals who teach manifesting, the terminology of feeling is misconstrued or, like I said, ambiguous. And so I think we have to start with what feeling means, or why you have this idea that we have to feel like we are spiritually expanded in order for us to become spiritually expanded, or for me to feel like I am married to a person to become married to a person, or how to feel like I have $1 million in order for me to receive through manifestation $1 million. Does that make sense so far, what I'm saying, the premise of this? I'm going to get into the answer of that, but if you can raise your hand if what I'm saying so far, the question makes sense, and why I'm going to elaborate on this, the ambiguity of the word feeling. So there is a premise which stems from law of attraction, which states that feeling emits an electromagnetic wave, which then in some capacity draws forth your manifestation, period. And so the idea is that it is emotion and or feeling, those words are synonymous. Feeling or emotion is the key thing that is required in order to manifest what you want. And the premise, that is what law of attraction is based on. And the truth is that feeling is not what is required in order to manifest. And so that's a bold statement. However, it's very easily tested. And I try to do that over and over in my YouTube videos by having you write things down. So writing things down is one of the easiest ways to dispel that idea that we must emotionally match with something, with that feeling of already having it in order for us to receive it. Now, it's not fully false. So there's a piece of truth. In order for us to receive something, we must, rather than feel, we must experience it in our imagination. So experiencing it is a much more accurate word to describe what we have to do in our imagination in order for us to receive the thing that we want to manifest. And so what do I mean by experience? Experience could be any facet of your imagination utilized or taken action upon. And in the process of doing that, you impress your subconscious mind with the image and or the feeling and or the sensation and or the inner conversation. That piece of imagination, right? And just to be clear, what I mean by imagination is not just visualization, and it's not just feeling. It could be any sixth sense sensation, such as anything that you can imagine. So tasting, touching, smelling, feeling, speaking. Words are extremely powerful. And I can go on and on and on, but any facet of your imagination has the capacity to create. So what I'm alluding to, and how this is in reference to your question, is that I don't have to know how it feels to be a spiritual guru in order to become a spiritual guru. But all I have to be able to do is be a little creative in how to construct a scene properly, which would prove that I already am that spiritually expanded person that I want to be, that I'm already that millionaire that I want to be, that I'm already that married person that I want to be. So to get down to the very specifics of what I would do in the situation of wanting to become a more spiritually fit person, expanded person, etc., I would find a scene which would imply that I already am that person. So what scene would imply that I am already that person? Perhaps I could be engaged in a conversation with one of my good friends. Or perhaps I could be engaged with one of my clients, explaining a story about how I have grown over the past such and such time. The idea is to take something which would actually happen. So if you already were that spiritual person, how would you describe that to a friend? What would you be doing differently? How would you be speaking differently? So what you can do is map out an exact conversation between you and a trusted friend about what you would say, what you would be doing, if you were elaborating to them that you are now that spiritually expanded person. And so if you do that, and if you have your friend tell you, like I'll give you a very specific example. If I was doing that imaginal act, if I wanted to spiritually expand myself, I would imagine someone who I trust gives me a compliment that I have very much become an expanded spiritual person, or that I don't know if those words specifically would be what I would use. Maybe you have become much more spiritual, or you have become much more powerfully spiritual, Joseph. And I would visualize a friend telling that to me and hear them say it to me. And then I would respond back and say, thank you so much. It is true. I have grown so much spiritually over the past few months or few years. And in my case, perhaps even dropping the time frame. I know I have grown so much so fast that it's amazing. So it's not feeling that needs to match with something. We're not emitting something that's going to catch with something else. Words themselves, if used properly in accurate terminology, can manifest as well. So in my case, I sacrifice feeling. I don't even feel when I visualize. I barely do. Sometimes I can if it happens naturally, but I trade feeling with verbiage because verbiage is way more accurate. But I'll mix that verbiage that I'm talking back and forth with a friend with the visual scene, with what I see, taste, touch, hear, what my friend is saying, or the trusted individual. And doing that will plant a seed. And the way manifestation works is whatever you impress upon your subconscious mind will be replicated. So in this imagination, I experience something in the exact identical likeness let me even expand on that further, to the degree to which I can accurately impress my subconscious mind, will I experience that exact impression on this external world. So if I do a half-baked impression, if I run through the imaginal act, if I don't care, if I'm not taking my time, if I haven't relaxed first, if I only play the scene one time for a few seconds and then I let it go, that will be a half-baked manifestation or half-baked impression, which will lead to random results. I will still probably get some results because each thought has some weight and depth. However, The more I repeat a scene in one sitting, the more clear it gets, the more realistic it gets, the more emulation of reality exists in my imagination. And from that point forward, whether I am just using speech, whether I'm using emotion, feeling, or a combination of all of those, whatever I impress must be replicated outward. So in the case of a friend complimenting me on my spiritual progress and me responding back, explaining to him or her the truth that they're saying, and how, yes, of course, I've grown so much. My manifestations are so powerful. I've become much more focused on spiritual matters. That must now happen in the external world. And so in order for that to happen in the external world, that means that I must become a spiritual person. Otherwise, I would never have that conversation. It would make me into a liar if I had that conversation. And so whatever we impress must be manifested outward. And that's why we always imagine after the end, because the blanks will be filled in. So I will become that person before I have that conversation. But if I imagine that conversation properly, I must have it